Hey, good evening, everyone. It is Tuesday evening. We had a pretty incredible day following a fairly incredible day yesterday. Yesterday was the DeepSeek correction crash that sent semiconductor stocks just to crash and burn. And today we had a bounce back, not quite covering all the losses that were obtained on Monday, but Tuesday was a pretty good recovery and it really sent stocks flying up. The NASDAQ for the year is up 2%. And that's not bad considering we had a pretty significant scare on Monday, which sent stocks down. And we'll take a look at the semiconductor space in a bit. But overall, you could see the volatility, right? You've got these really down moments. Earlier just this year, we were down 4%. And then, of course, on Monday, we had a pretty severe uh, pullback combined with, I guess, the sell off we had on Friday, 3.55. I wouldn't be surprised if we're in this type of volatility for 2025, especially here at the beginning of the year. We have something to worry about. We have high stock prices. And if any bit of bad news enters the picture, these stocks are selling off. It's scary for investors. And especially investors that are sitting on stocks like NVIDIA or Vistra or Super Microcomputer. These stocks are so touchy. If they get some bad news, sell off because they're just so expensive. And I don't think it's going to end well for the stocks that have those valuations because everything's priced to perfection. But the reality is it's very hard to be perfect for a long period of time. As time passes, I think more stories will come up of how the AI space is so new that there will be continued advancements and innovations. Just like DeepSeek came into the picture and said, hey, we did it faster, cheaper. And people are questioning, oh, well, maybe it's a lie. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. But I bet you other companies are going to come out with similar stories where they have come out with a better mousetrap, a better way of building AI at a lower cost. So I think that's going to continue to happen, and I expect that a lot. San Diego, what's up, man? How are we feeling about Microsoft and Apple? Those are two really key stocks this week, and I'd love to talk about those. I'm going to note them, and I will cover them. Just hang tight, and I will provide comments. What I'll do, guys, is I'm going to have some opening comments. And there was one stock I wanted to look at, which was Chubb. They announced after hours. We can go through the earnings, do the complete evaluation of the stock, and I'll give you my opinion. And then we'll get to the list of stocks that you want to look at. And that way I could queue up a good number of stocks and then kind of hit them kind of in one string. So bear with me. Thanks for joining. I appreciate it. Sounds like you're from San Diego, and I'm here in California as well. So good to have you. All right. So we're talking about the NASDAQ. What's the S&P doing year to date? Well, year to date, it's up 3.16, and that's good. That's a good start to the year. Last year it did really well. Well, it's off to a good start. The Dow is really off to a nice start, and the Dow lagged the S&P and the NASDAQ by a pretty good margin in 24 and 23. So it's kind of coming back here early in 2025. And the small caps represented by the Russell, it's doing okay. Small caps, it's such a, pretty broad spectrum of stocks, a lot of bad ones in there. There are some really good performing Russell 2000 stocks. I have a couple of them. They're doing great. Especially software companies have really been noticed now. Software companies are beginning to rally, especially small caps. I'm going to go over DocuSign a little later, and I'm going to go over Zoom, which really had a good day. And I think investors are waking up to the fact that Zoom is a really high quality stock that is undervalued. And now it's receiving a lot of buys. So the stock really rallied today. We'll take a look at that. All right, so the Russell. Now let's take a look at the heat map. But before I jump over there, of course, I got to look at NVIDIA because that is the stock. This is like my soap opera, man. What is going to happen next? And again, just to remind everybody, from June to now, this stock's pretty much going sideways. If you buy it in June, you're sitting there going, why do I subject myself to this kind of risk, this kind of stress, this kind of worrying to go sideways? I could have bought Meta and been up 40% from that point. I could have bought a lot of stocks. Like I could have bought Robinhood and been up 100% from that point. I could have bought SoFi and been up 100% from that point. There's just so many stocks that have outperformed NVIDIA. Meanwhile, this stock continues to be over $1 trillion in market cap. It lost about $600 billion of market cap yesterday. Huge decrement of capital leaving Nvidia. A lot of it flowed back, but yesterday it started the day at 3.5 trillion. It made it back to 3.16 trillion, which means that 0.34 trillion didn't make it back. So in my book, the 2-day, this stock's severely in correction. And the volatility, yeah, we had to come back today, but what's going to happen tomorrow? Be really interesting to watch. Of course, I'll be watching and checking it out. All right, so looks like, say, Diego, you want to look at Tesla, 120%. All right, we'll take a look at Tesla as well. I'll put that on the list. All right, so Nvidia is just such a important stock nowadays. It's really setting the table for so many other stocks. Looking at the heat map, of course, the semiconductor space made a stupendous comeback. Nvidia, clawing its way back. Broadcom did not claw back as much. This stock was shellacked yesterday. I think it was down like 15%. It got 2.5% back. And some other stocks, didn't, launch a comeback. So just a couple of stocks, of course, the most popular one made it back. Now, software, there was a lot of money made in software today. Man, just really good names. I don't even know where to start here. CrowdStrike had a stupendous day, up 9%. Fortnite up 3%. Microsoft up 2.87%. Palo Alto, Palantir. I mean, these stocks really moved, and a lot of them are small caps, not bad, big major, caps that are hard to move. So that did great. Apple really has been having a pretty good week, frankly. And I think all the crazy news around, DeepSeek and how it's posing a major risk for the semiconductor space and AI, that is helping Apple. It is providing cover. We are not focused on how bad Apple has been performing for the last 2 years, having no growth, having no real good ideas, and they've kind of, ducked for cover. And a lot of investors, I think, went to Apple as a safety move. They got out of Nvidia or some of those other crazy stocks like the utilities that were up, just crazy amounts, and they moved to Apple potentially. Microsoft posed a pretty good comeback. And if you look at Microsoft year to date, and we'll look at it more in detail because there was a request a little later, we'll get into it because it's doing quite well for the year. I've been buying into Microsoft. I really want to own a lot of shares of Microsoft. Financials had a great day yesterday, not so much today, but it isn't this high, this brilliant red. When it's brilliant red, that's bad news. When it's this dull kind of burgundy or close to black here, it's just pretty much not too bad of a pullback. Asset managers did well. Amazon came back. Of course, Amazon's awesome. And we had some travel stocks do really well because one of the cruise ship lines had a fabulous earnings, and they went up like 12%. The two bigs in communication services, Meta and Google, did quite well. And a little later, I'm going to show you year to date on Meta. They are doing great. I am so glad that I own Meta. It's the biggest position in my portfolio. It really held my portfolio, with little losses yesterday. I was down 0.27 yesterday. I was up about 0.89 today percent. So for the 2-day, I'll take it because I'm sure some other portfolios just got really beat up because a lot of stocks were down big yesterday. Industrials, nothing to talk about there. RTX had a very good earnings, but I would say that, LMT is one of my holdings, and I bought more shares because I think this is a little overdone, down 9%. I still think these guys are going to bounce back because they had a temporary cost element that reduced their free cash flow. And I think that lowered their valuation, but I think they're going to come back in 2025. So this was a mixed bag here. Some stocks did well, like Raytheon did really well, but some stocks did not, like LMT did terrible. Healthcare took a break today. It was up yesterday, and today, not so much, but yesterday had a very good day. So over the 2-day, it's doing just fine. Pfizer had a very good 2-day run. CVS is still in the green. CVS is doing really well. So CVS has been really working here in 2025. I think it's up to 25-30%. So that looks really good. Hey, it looks like Mike's on. REITs did great today. Then today, REITs did great yesterday, and then they died today. Oh, no, that's not good. Vici. I like Vici. I like what they do. And then O is Realty Income, I believe. And then Rex I'm not sure what that one is, but we'll take a peek at those, Mike. Give me a few minutes. I wanted to have just a stream of thought here, but I'll get to those stocks. Sorry to hear that REITs went down. So healthcare, I think, is going to present a pretty good proposition for me in 2025. I'm buying. I'm buying into CVS. I'm buying into Elevance. I bought some shares of Pfizer. I couldn't resist. I think Pfizer is going to surprise to the upside on their earnings, and I wanted to have a couple more shares. Energy had a bad day, but they've been having a decent year in a pretty decent couple of months. Utilities, these guys had a very good excuse me. But yesterday, independent power producers up 6%. But yesterday, some stocks were down as much as 28%. So hey, it's nice that you're having a recovery day, but yesterday you got shellacked. You lost so much money. So that's that. So that's what's going on out there. And I think Mike was interested in REITs. Yeah, REITs was a little red out there. Looks like specialty REITs got beat up. Office REITs, boy, they've had a terrible couple years. Looks like services, real estate services was probably the place you wanted to be, or industrials, right? That makes a lot of sense. So that's what happened in REITs. I think the flight to safety wasn't the move today, because yesterday, consumer staples, this was bright green. Everybody's going flight to safety. Today, you know what? Let's pull some money out of Procter and Gamble and put it into some of these growing stocks. Let's pull some money out of Pepsi and put it into some of these growing stocks. So I think that's what was going on today. And we'll see what happens. These days where you have one severe down day and then a recovery day, this is typical of a correcting market. If you remember 2022, this is what we dealt with. If we look back at 2022, let's get in the time machine together, shall we? And let's go to the 5-year, which won't show me, a whole lot, but we would have these down days, and then we'd have up days to give us a little bit of hope, down, and then a bear rally, down. So if we have these severe down, trends, we're going to get into a nice correcting market. It's too early to tell, but I'm just saying it's normal for the day after a massive correction like the one we had yesterday, where in one day NVIDIA lost 17% and so much capital left a particular sector. That capital isn't going to go back, and it's going to kind of reestablish a couple of things: is which sectors are desirable, and where's the money going to flow? Where's the smart money going to flow? The other thing I would say is, as the S&P index, and I think it rebalances at the end of each month, or I'm not quite sure. I wonder how often it rebalances, every quarter, every month. I'm not sure. But if you have certain stocks that basically lost a lot of value, it gets worse, because when the S&P indexes rebalance, all the ETFs that are based on the S&P, they have to sell off a certain amount of stocks so it could correspond to its appropriate share of the S&P. So that's what's going on overall. A couple more things to show, and then we're going to get into some stocks. So the sector that had the most appreciation today, technology, no big surprise, but yesterday it was down big. Consumer services, Meta, showing up big. Nicely done. Okay, so those are the winners, but year to date, let's look at the scoreboard year to date. I don't think here we go. So the leader of the pack, the leading sector now is communication services. Beautiful. I am invested. That's probably, in the two stocks that I own the most shares in, or the most value, I should say, is Meta and Google. And those are consumer services. 7.4%. I'll take it. And Netflix is in there. They're having a great year. So you can totally understand that's a sector that's doing really well. Healthcare, beautiful. I think this historically has done really well. For it to only do 12% in the trailing 12 months, that means that, and when you look at these stocks, they're undervalued, low PEs, high cash flow, growth. You're seeing all the right elements, all the right fundamentals that I want to see in a stock. You find a lot of good looking stocks in healthcare. Financials have been doing really well. 2025 was a stupendous year, and they're having a good start to 2025. Materials showing up well, industrials, everything else is out there. It's in the green. Technology still lagging the rest of the market, even though it had a nice day. For the month, it's down almost 1%. So that is interesting to look. Now let's look at the big, massive caps, the Magnificent Seven, the top 10. They've been so important to the market for a while. Let's take a look. Apple's had a couple good days, but it was in correction territory. It was down 12, 13% at one point. It's still negative for the year. Microsoft bounced back. It's doing well for the year, 6%. I'm buying into Microsoft because I think it's undervalued. We're going to get into Microsoft. I'm going to go step by step, look at it closely. It was requested by somebody, so I'm going to dive into it. NVIDIA It's down 4% for the year. It was up 9% today, but it was down 17% yesterday. Amazon's doing good. Amazon's doing very good for the year. Google's just holding it together compared to the others. But look at this. Meta up 16% in 2025. Meta did not get hammered yesterday because the story around that was Meta can basically, they don't have to pick the right horse early. They can switch. If the whole DeepSeek story is true and they've come out with less expensive AI, Meta could use it. They can put it on WhatsApp. They could use it across more of their applications and it'd actually be less expensive to use. So that was the story behind that. And that's why Apple also rallied, because Apple doesn't have a big AI application or a large language model. And they can switch to these less expensive AI models if they, in fact, are less expensive. Let me remind you of something. TikTok put social media on its back when it came out. It was so popular. Now the Chinese have come out with an AI application model technology that is really impressive. So let's not take away, or I should say, looking at it from a impartial position of, hey, are these guys capable over in China of developing technology? You bet. They did it with TikTok. They've done it. TSM is a Taiwanese company. You have a lot of companies in China that are really advanced in the ability to create really solid technology, software. In the case of TikTok, I mean, they nailed that. Short form video. It was such a high growth company, so high growth that the government in the US has to ban it because it's so popular. It just grows across so many people. And I have friends that are my age that love TikTok. They just love the experience. Well, that's Chinese. That's a Chinese technology. Now they're coming out with AI. Hey, man, they're probably going to be a force to be reckoned with. It's going to be the US versus China for a long time. I don't think I'm breaking any news with that comment. Tesla still down for the year. It was just barely hanging on today. Berkshire, not a lot of noise out of Berkshire, but they're still a $1 trillion market cap company. And I'm sure they're holding their own because they own so much darn Apple. And then Broadcom came back, but they're in correction territory. And I think Broadcom is severely overpriced. All right, so that's what's going on with the major caps.